Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope you're doing well on this Thursday. By the way, it's been some glorious weather here along the Wasatch Front. It's finally spring. I've broken out the golf clubs. If you guys want to hit the links, hit me up. I'm always game if I have time to go out and play around. But the bigger point you made here is it is springtime, and this is when college basketball prospects really emerge on the AAU/EYBL circuit. And this is an interesting time for those prospects because typically this is when they make their names for themselves with scouts, with talent evaluators, both at the college and NBA levels. And one premier prospect is opting out of all that. You may have seen this yesterday. Tyran Stokes, who plays for Notre Dame Prep Academy, I believe is what it's called, in Sherman Oaks, California. The report came out that he's skipping out on AAU, Nike EYBL. He is not going to play the summer circuit of basketball. Well, why would he do that? Well, it has fueled major speculation that he is considering, like AJ Dybantsa did many, many moons ago. He did almost over a year ago, I think, at this point. He may be considering reclassifying into the 2025 recruiting cycle. And what's the connection to BYU, Jake? Good thing you asked. Well, he and AJ Dybantsa once upon a time were prep teammates. Yes, that right there could be a hook to help BYU to get a talent like Tyran Stokes on campus at BYU. Tyron Stokes is the number one rated prospect in the 2026 cycle right now. He's rated 99 by 24/7 Sports, 5-star prospect of the highest order. His composite rating is 99.99, so he is just a shade out of being that perfect prospect like AJ is. And at 6'7", 245 pounds, he is a combo forward who could be the perfect complement to a guy like AJ Dybantsa and Richie Saunders in the BYU lineup. He's got the size, as I mentioned, at 245 pounds. He is not a rail thin prospect who needs time to develop in the weight room. He's already got a college-ready body, and that may be part of the reason why he's saying, you know what? Maybe I just want to jump in now and see what I can do. And I'll just say this. If BYU has any inclination of seeing themselves make a Final Four, make a run at a national championship, if Tyron Stokes is truly intent on reclassifying into this recruiting cycle, you go all in on this guy. We have heard from BYU boosters, is it Dan Lillianquist? I know the last name is Lillianquist. He said, we will not be outbid if Tyron Stokes does indeed reclassify and BYU be a part of a pack of dozens, if not hundreds of schools who would chase this kid if he does enter the 2025 cycle. But if BYU really has the infinite amount of funds, NIL-wise, to attract talent, Tyron Stokes is the guy to match up with AJ Dybantsa. And I'm not going to mince words. Get him to BYU. Now, let me also add this. I know he's playing high school basketball in California currently, but he is a native of Louisville, Kentucky. And there's a big thought that he may want to go back to his hometown and put on for the Louisville Cardinals. Hey, I get that. A lot of us would want to do that for our hometown as well, would want to put on for our hometown squad. But I think AJ Dybantsa, what Kevin Young is building at BYU, proving that he can send guys to the NBA, because Jaeger Demon just declared for the NBA draft, and AJ Dybantsa is still the number one rated prospect in the 2026 NBA draft mock drafts that are out there. You can make a major push for a guy like Tyron Stokes, and he'd be foolish not to consider it because, as I mentioned, he's a former prep teammate of AJ Dybantsa. He's got a relationship with AJ, and AJ can tell him, hey, this is what BYU is all about. And we've already seen that AJ, he is putting on for BYU at an extremely high level. This is a kid who is sporting BYU gear everywhere. He's on national TV shows. He's going to these different high school all-star events. And all he does is speak effusively about what BYU is about, what he hopes to accomplish, how he's embracing everything that BYU stands for. It's an absolute gold mine marketing-wise for BYU. And to elevate the play on the court, a guy like Tyron Stokes alongside AJ, and like I said, a guy like Richie Saunders, that's the trio that could really take BYU to some unprecedented heights. I think as it stands right now, without Tyron Stokes, BYU at worst is probably a top 15 preseason team. I think that's the very worst. They're more likely to be a preseason top 10. That's the type of talent that AJ Dybantsa and the fame that he brings to BYU, that'll elevate them to that status. You get Tyron Stokes on board, they're top 5 at worst, and heck, they may be pushing for the number 1 spot in the preseason poll if he does do this. Once again, let me reiterate and be very clear. This is speculation. We do not know that Tyron Stokes is going to reclassify, but him skipping out on the summer circuit where really you do make hay when it comes to being a prospect of that magnitude, it's very curious that he would opt out on that. And that is why if he comes on the market, BYU needs to throw whatever amount of money the offer needs to be to get him to BYU. Give him an offer that he can't refuse. I'm quoting The Godfather there. This would be one of those talents. If you pair with AJ Dybantsa, yeah, they're going to be very, very young. They're going to be much like Duke this past year, where they're going to be playing freshmen who are top-tier prospects. And there's obviously concerns because there are people out there saying that for the first time ever, a freshman did not play in the national championship this year. Yeah, experience does win at a high level in college basketball. But Duke came one inbound away from blowing that whole notion and that whole storyline up. BYU and Kevin Young have proven that they can steer top-tier talent in a positive direction. And in the case of what Jaeger Demon's doing, get them to the NBA after 1 year, but also accomplish really, really nice things along the way, obviously making a run into the Sweet 16 this year. AJ Dybantsa, Tyran Stokes, and then having a guy like Richie Saunders as a Big 12 all Big 12 first-team honoree, I'm telling you, that has got the core of what could be the floor at the very worst of Sweet 16, and more likely the expectation is the Final Four, if not a national championship game appearance. That is the type of talent that Tyron Stokes can bring to BYU to pair alongside AJ Dybantsa. So if, I'll reiterate that, if there's any opportunity to get Tyron Stokes to BYU to team up with Kevin Young and company, make it happen, Cougars. Put that money where your mouth is and, hey, flex that prowess. And let me also reiterate one more time. I get that it kind of feels in a way dirty, and I get all that, but this is the new era of college basketball. Do not let opposing fan bases, Baylor, Utah State, who want to rip BYU for playing by the rules. Great. If that's what BYU has to wear, that they are the power that, played by the rules for years and is now finally playing by these other rules, and suddenly people want to rip them coming and going, go for it. BYU needs to embrace who they are and understand people are always going to hate on the Cougars. Any of you who are older than I am, I'm almost 40 now. I've watched part of the WAC era. I've watched the Mountain West era, and BYU, they were loathed in those eras. They were loathed for stretches of their West Coast Conference tenure and also during their independent run. Well, we may be just getting going here in the Big 12, and this is just kind of the lot that BYU gets. Like I said, they get ripped coming and going, but they play by the rules. And the rules are written the way they are right now, and money talks. Go out and get it, and get a guy like Tyron Stokes, and just to, not pun not intended, stoke the fire just a little bit more and really bug some more people along the way. We'll see how it all goes, but that Tyron Stokes, he is absolutely worth it. If BYU wants to be a top-tier program, if you can get him, go get him. All right, coming up next, we'll finish up today's show with questions that were submitted via our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. A lot of good ones on college basketball, BYU's place in the pantheon of college hoops, some college football talk. We'll get to all that next as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars.